Hello guys, can you hear me and see the screen as well? Please just post a comment in the comment section if you can. Okay, great. Hello everyone, and welcome to this Q&A session with the CEO of Cabral Gold, Alan Carter. Alan will begin with a short presentation, mainly around the latest drill results, and then afterwards we will have time for a lot of questions. I have prepared a few questions, and please post all your questions in the live comment section, and then we'll take as many as we can afterwards. So Alan, thank you for joining, and take it away.
Thanks, Mikkel. Yeah, very nice to be here. Thanks everybody for logging on. Look, I've prepared a few slides here. This isn't on the website. This is not the corporate presentation, although some of the slides that you will recognize. It's been, I think the last update we had, or the last one of these Facebook calls that we had, was in early August. So you know, I wanted to update you guys. So I've spent a little bit of time here. So there's some information here and a few visuals that I think you might find interesting. So basically, you know, I think the question really is, rather than run through the top of the presentation, for those of you that are new to the story, you'll have to excuse me, hopefully, because I'm not going to run through the whole the story from the beginning. But please feel free to ask me questions, and we can flick back to the corporate presentation. So I wanted to focus really on what's new. I mean, what's been happening here. I know there's been a little bit of frustration on a few things, so on a few fronts. So look, what's new since the last Q&A of the 4th of August? I'd like to run through these. So the first thing is, we've expanded that first oxide blanket that we found back in, I think it was April. It's now 24 hectares. I think it's going to keep growing, guys, to be honest. I mean, I'm more optimistic today than I was probably. I was very optimistic that the thing would grow, but I think even a month ago I didn't realize how big this thing's starting to become. The grade is obviously, as this blanket, as you are aware, I think most of you are aware, this has resulted from the erosion of the underlying hard rock primary MG gold deposit. So probably over millions of years, that in situ deposit, which is a steeply dipping body, has been weathering to form this blanket. And so this is very, very significant. Very significant. We've expanded the size of it, 24 hectares. I think it will grow again. There are a lot more RC drill results pending. We put an initial, I think it was 73, 74 hole vertical RC grid over the thing to try and find out how big this is. We've drilled a few more holes, so we've drilled 86 holes. We've had some recent results, as recently as the last week or so. We've drilled 66 meters at 0.7, 24 meters at 0.8. Now, probably you guys are all sitting at home thinking, why is he so excited by these numbers? I'm so excited by these numbers because this is in unconsolidated mud, sand and soil from surface. And this area, the top, all this weathered material, this unconsolidated material on top of the MG deposit, it's up to 50 meters thick, was assumed to be sterile, i.e. waste, during the last resource estimate. Now, you know, you guys all know tons and grades, or at least most of you do, or meters and gold grades. There is an enormous difference between having gold values in this unconsolidated material as opposed to hard rock. Why? Because as you can imagine, to get gold out of hard rock requires an enormous amount of effort and money and cost. So 66 meters at 0.7 from surface, you're probably going to make an awful lot of money ultimately when you come to mine it, if you've got, instead of, you know, having a much higher drill intercept deep, because as I said, you've got to drill and blast, and the cost of getting to that high grade material at depth are much, much higher than the material we've got. So look, we're all conditioned to sort of, like, as I said, tons and grades, but it really does depend on the material you're dealing with, and this stuff is sitting right on the surface. I've talked about icing on a cake. This is a pretty thick amount of icing we've got on top of the cake here. As you're aware, we found a second one. We had some news out today on the second blanket, which is about 6 kilometers away, at a place called PDM. It's another one of the 43 targets that we've got at Kuyu. This second blanket, I've actually got the old dimensions on there. So initially, we thought this blanket was 200 by 800 meters, 200 by 400 meters. Then it's grown to 800 by 300 meters, and now it's grown to 900 meters by 350, and it's still open, right? Best hole into this material so far, 40 meters at 2.2. By the way, the best hole that we had at MG so far is about 60 meters at 3.5 grams. So these numbers are lower, but they are very, very significant. Now, the news that we had out today, that we've expanded the blanket, not by an enormous amount, but the more significant point is that when you look at the grid, the RC holes that we're drilling from surface and the distribution of grade within that grid, it's picking out very strongly a higher grade zone that's trending northwest. Why am I so excited about that northwest trending zone? That we can now trace 500 meters in a northwest-southeast direction within that blanket, because we think that higher grade zone is starting to define the underlying hard rock source at PDM. And that northwest trend is identical to the northwest trend on the central deposit, which occurs directly along strike 2.5 kilometers away. So we have a soil anomaly which links the central gold deposit, comes all the way up and up through the PDM target area. It's 5 kilometers long. We've done very little drilling between PDM and central, and the actual soil anomaly, when we took soil samples in the very early days here at PDM, that soil anomaly at PDM is as good as the soil anomaly at central and MG. So we are very, very excited by it. And like I said, many of you probably wondering, well, why is he, again, as I said, so excited by these results? Because it is really, really significant. So look, we're diamond drilling at PDM right now in an attempt to find out the source of that gold. And we've already got a few historic holes into the underlying granitic rocks that sit under that PDM blanket. And so we've got already got some interesting results here. We've got, well, let's wait until we come to the actual slide. The other thing, Mashishi Southwest, point number 3, we've got 3 new northeast trending veins, arguably 4, but let's call it 3. That now brings the total of 9 pretty high grade veins. We've got some narrow but pretty good intercepts, a couple of 1 meter intercepts above 18 grams a ton, some wider lower grades. That area is looking more and more interesting. There is a whole series of northeast trending veins here between the MG gold deposit and Mashishi, which is an east-west trending zone. So anyway, we'll talk about that. There's 2 additional drill rigs arrived on site. We announced it on the 15th of July, but there are, so we've got 3 diamond rigs turning and 2 RC rigs turning right now. And the 5th thing, which is very important, since the last call, in fact, 5 days after the last call, on the 4th of August, Eldorado Gold, that has the project right next door to us, and it's called TZ, announced that they were selling it. Now, they've had that project for 11 years. It's been on the back burner. It is fully permitted. They've made a deal to sell that project for $110 million. And it says here the deal expected to close. That's because I started writing this presentation a couple of days ago. Yesterday, the deal closed. And that's going to be a big gold mine. In fact, it'll be Brazil's 3rd largest gold mine. We are right next to it. Right. Tapajós, I think you're all probably aware of this site, the world's largest ever gold rush. You can see you've seen this map before. There's a trend through there. You can see where we are. I don't know if you can see my cursor moving. Hopefully you can. But anyway, look, this is where This still says El Dorado Gold. I need to update it. It's not El Dorado Gold anymore. It's G Mining. I was involved in the discovery of this, by the way, guys. I used to own the royalty at Tocantinzinho. So myself and my partner, Dennis Moore, originally identified that. And so it's been a long time getting it to this point. But G Mining is going to aggressively pursue that. So anyway, look, we're just to the northwest of them. We are continuing to advance the district scale opportunity. This is the location of, I'm not going to talk about all the numerous targets here, I just don't have time. This is Powder Miranda, and that's the outline of the blanket, and that's the central deposit through there that you can see. We'll talk a little bit about Powder Miranda in a moment, and you can see where Mashishi Southwest is relative to the MG deposit, which is an east-west trending hard rock deposit, and then there's a blanket sitting on top of it, which is that big blob. And all the yellow spidery lines here, guys, are streams that were mined for gold. So they all contain alluvial gold. So as I think most of you know, we don't know where most of the placer gold is coming from at Cuiú yet. Right? We think that Central and MG probably explain maximum of 10% of the placer gold. Where is all this placer gold coming from to the east? Powder Miranda looks like it may explain why there's so much gold coming down these drainages in the northwest corner of the project area. Right. So let's talk a little bit about those various new developments. The MG gold and oxide blanket. As I said, the original RC program has been expanded to 86 holes. It is still open. It's currently 24 hectares. We think it's going to keep growing. And there's a lot of drill holes still pending, guys. The news flow, I know some of you have been a bit frustrated by the news flow, particularly in September. It's a combination, frankly, of the lab being incredibly backed up in Brazil. COVID has had an impact in terms of how quickly they can process samples. And then in September, the fire assay ovens, they had to change the lining, so nobody got any results for 2 weeks. As I said, we've had some recent results on this in the last few weeks. And what does all this mean? What implications does the discovery and the identification of this sort of blanket material, in unconsolidated blanket material, what are the implications? What does it mean, right? Well, I think there are a number of implications, and this is not an exhaustive list. There are other ones too, but the ones that jump out at me at first is, well, there's gold in this material, which was previously assumed during the last resource estimate that we did in 2018. There's gold in it. This material was assumed to be completely sterile. It's not. How big is it? We don't know yet, but we're getting a pretty good idea about it. Obviously, having easily processable material that can be processed and mined very, very cheaply has significant implications for payback. Because this material is now mineralized and was previously assumed to be waste, the ultimate pit depth here, the open pit depth, is likely to go deeper, and the stripping ratio will be lower. So, as I said, the presence of this easily accessible resource at surface, and we don't have a resource number yet, but there's clearly, we've demonstrated the continuity of this blanket mineralization. It's consistent. There are higher grades within it, but I can't really overstate it. I can't really say more about it. What are the next steps? Well, the next steps on this really are to do the metallurgical test work. So we haven't made a big song and dance about that. We are in the process right now of collecting metallurgical samples, and we will get those tested. Why are we doing the met work? Because we want to know what the processing route is and exactly what we're going to do to recover the gold here. Mother Nature has obviously done the bulk of the work, because we're not having to drill and blast hard material and grind it to a fine powder anymore. It's as I said, unconsolidated material. Permitting on this is also very key. Obviously, we're very well advanced on that front, and we're planning to do some preliminary economic studies during the first half of 2022. But the real key for us really is to just complete the amount of drilling that we've got to do at MG, and we've done virtually all of it now at the blanket. We're still drilling the underlying gold deposit at MG, the original gold deposit, the hard rock deposit. and then the met work. So for the next few months, and I can give you some idea of timing on the met work, but it will take us a few months to get, because we're shipping about half a ton of material up to a lab in the US. There's a blanket, it has grown a bit. That's just some of the more recent results coming through there. Now, a lot of these, aren't really going to turn most of yours cranks. And don't forget, most of these holes, a lot of these holes we're drilling on the periphery here. So, they are lower grade. Some of them are higher, as I said, 66 meters at 0.7. The most easterly hole that we've got so far, with results on it, all these yellow ones are pending. There's quite a lot of holes pending. But the most easterly hole in the blanket is 23 meters at 0.6, which isn't bad. You guys have probably not seen this. This is not on the website. This is a little model. I thought it might be useful in order to visualize it a little bit if we, and I asked our VPX to just do a little 3D model. So what you're looking at here, guys, is the orange color is the blanket. It's thinner at the edges and it thickens. You can't really see that here, but it thickens towards the center. And then the green and red zones are the underlying, that's the underlying hard rock deposit at MG. It is open at depth, and we are doing quite a bit of work on the western side in terms of drilling the hard rock there. So I'll play that again just so you can see it. So that's basically what it looks like. So you can imagine that blanket, that orangey material, is the weathered material that's coming off. Ultimately, a lot of that gold is, the gold travels down slope and ends up in the drainages. But, this is really, really significant. And as I said, all that material is assumed to be sterile waste. Anyway, I thought you guys might find that interesting. Let's keep moving along here. Right. So let's talk about this new thing in a bit more detail at PDM, this second blanket. As I said, when we discovered that last one that I've just shown you in the 3D model above the MG deposit, we had a look at all the historic holes. And there are a couple of holes. There's one hole really at Power and Render, which had 7 or 8 drill holes into it that looked like there could be another blanket here. So we did some follow-up RC drilling. And initially we thought, that we could have a blanket that was 8 hectares, reasonably small, i.e. 400 by 200 meters. We've now done 31 RC holes, vertical RC holes from surface, obviously. At current extent is 900 by 350. So it's, my math is a little bit off there. It's a bit bigger than 27 hectares, but close enough. So we've had some pretty good results into this. It is outlining this northeast trending zone, as I said in the introduction. What does this mean? Why is this important to the project? Well, obviously it's a second source of oxide ore. This is going to add even more ounces to the overall resource base here. And the really exciting thing for us is the possibility of an underlying deposit here. We're getting very strong indications that we're now onto something underlying this second blanket. I don't have a 3D model of this, guys, because there's no resource yet at Power and Render. You can see where it is relative to Central. We were just looking with that 3D model I showed you down here at MG. I think I've got an old one from Central. We've just started drilling again at Central, but I've got an old rotating model from Central, so we'll have a look at that in a moment. But look, here's the blanket at Power and Render. There is all this gold coming down these streams. And this is a sort of blow up. This is a blanket as we currently know it. It's about 27, 28 hectares. There is this hot zone, this higher grade zone here that's picking out the drill holes. So the blanket's obviously more extensive, but there's a zone here. Now, I've also put on some of the historic drill holes here. And some of these were pretty good, 47 meters at 1.8 grams. What else have we got here? I'll actually read some of these. 7 meters at 2 grams, 8 meters at 5 grams, not bad. So 30 meters at 1.1. So, and then all this yellow material is the alluvial material. That's, I think a lot of this alluvial gold that was recovered during the gold rush days is probably coming from from this thing and the underlying deposit here. So I think what we're going to find, what we hope to find at PDM, is exactly the same as what I just showed you at MG. The discovery process in reverse, that rotating model of MG, we obviously found the hard rock deposit first, and then we found the blanket on top. This one, we found the blanket first, and we're very optimistic we're going to find a deposit underneath this. So stay tuned. New high-grade veins at Mashishi. Let's just recap as to where this is. This is just to the north of rotating model. I'm looking for a map. Oh, there's one. Okay, so this is about 500 meters to the north. There is another east-west trending zone through here, and then there's some veins. Let's go and let's have a look at a map. Right, this is the MG deposit in yellow, that underlying thing in that rotating model I showed you. This is the blanket, and this is just the western part of it. We think we've got another primary gold deposit here at Mashishi, and so we are planning follow-up drilling in that probably early in the new year. We've got some nice results from that, guys. 34 meters at 5 grams, 20 meters at 1.2, 16 meters at 1.3, etc., etc. Look, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Before I think it was last week, we had 6 of these northeast trending veins. We've now got 9. In fact, you could argue there's 10 so far. And the yellow numbers are some of the recent results. A meter at 18 grams, 3 meters at 2, 2 meters at 0.9, 2 meters at 3. Some of the historic results on some of these veins, some of the existing veins, are quite spectacular. We've got 3.4 meters at 36.9 grams, including just under a meter at 162 grams a ton. 3 meters at 13, nice wide section, good grade. 3 meters at 7 grams. There is something very interesting going on in this area, and this is just a couple of hundred meters. It starts just a couple of hundred meters to the northwest of MG. So a lot of high-grade mineralization and some lower-grade mineralization, admittedly, in these veins immediately to the northwest of the MG deposit and to the north. We are jumping around a little bit here, and there'll be plenty of time for questions, I hope. As I said, the other big development here is what's been happening with the neighbours project. So this map shows the proximity of our project to what was Eldorado's project. And I'm sure it still says Eldorado's. Yes, it does. I haven't updated it for the news that came out yesterday. But anyway, look, Eldorado and now G Mining's claims are in blue. The TZ deposit here is this black dot. The yellow areas here that you can see, these yellow sort of areas, are areas where placer gold was extracted. There was 10 times more placer gold come out of the streams from Cuiú than there was at Tocantinzinho. So we think there's going to be an awful lot more gold that we'll find at Cuiú than is currently the resource at Tocantinzinho. And that Eldorado had that project for 11 years and did not grow the resource. So they have nothing like the exploration potential we do. Look, these G Mining guys, I didn't know them prior to the deal being announced, but I'd heard of them. They are a very, very well-known group of people in Canada. They're Quebec-based. They've built, get a load of this, they built 20 big gold mines, their team. Not 1 or 2, 20. These guys know what they're doing. They raised $70 million. It was a bought deal that they announced in mid-August. They closed it in mid-September. Pretty big deal. As I said, the deal is just closed. Now, the interesting thing for us is, look, they've committed to a pretty aggressive schedule for the development of that deposit, which is right next door. You saw our claims relative to theirs. Let's just go back. There you go. Our claim boundary here is obviously this pinkish line. They're contiguous with their claims. So they're a highly experienced bunch of guys. They've built a lot of gold mines in various jurisdictions. But what does it mean for us? What does it mean for Cabral? And what does it mean for your investment in our company? Well, first thing it does is it shines an enormous spotlight on the Tapajos region. This is going to be a big investment, guys. These guys are redoing the Eldorado feasibility study. That had a price tag for that development of TZ of about $470 million US. Now, we'll see what the revised feasibility comes out. I think G Mining is expecting to have a revised feasibility study done in the first quarter of next year. This will be Pará's largest gold mine and Brazil's third largest gold mine. Infrastructure here is going to improve significantly. There's a power line that will come in. Our permitting process is definitely going to accelerate. Not that it was going particularly slow, but it has all sorts of implications. There's a big difference, guys, between having an exciting exploration project like we have and being next door to a project which is stalled. And that's been the situation we've been in. To what's happening now, being next door to one of the biggest development projects. These guys are anticipating breaking ground middle of next year. So it's going to be super exciting for us to watch, and we're right next door. So how are we going to create some value? Obviously the share price, I know some of you are frustrated that the share price has backed off in the last couple of months. I know that you will also appreciate that. I think a big part of that is just the market in general. It has softened. But how are we going to sort of drive value creation over the next 12 months? Well, a big part of that 30,000 meters that we're going to drill over the next few months is aimed at defining the high-grade zones within the main MG and Central gold deposits. We've just moved the diamond rig to Central, one of the 3 diamond rigs to Central, and Central's got some fantastic intercepts. I mean, I think the best intercept we had at Central was 220 meters at 2 grams. I'll say that again, 220 meters at 2 grams. There are lots and lots of very wide intercepts of good grade mineralization. Within that, there are some high grade zones too, which we want to fully define. We want to demonstrate the economic viability of these blankets. These are significant. I harped on about them, and so that's, the MET work is a big step in the right direction on that. Complete the definition drilling of the blanket at PDM, but more importantly, find out whether we do have a primary gold deposit like we've got at MG and Central sitting right under it. We are going to continue to test some of the regional targets here. We do have one rig that's working on that, and ultimately we want to update the resource estimate. Now, some of you are going to ask me when exactly. Some point from the middle of next year. Now, it may be the 3rd quarter, it may even be the 4th quarter of next year. The next resource estimate has to be a significant jump in the total resource. And so we're not going to update the resource to add 20, 30, 40, 50% to the resource. This is an old 3D model. I thought I'd show you this of Central. So just to show you where Central is, obviously this map will do. It's 5 kilometers to the northwest, and we were just looking at that Powder Merenda. Where was it? Yeah. So if you look at an old 3D model of Central, and this will change. There's no blanket on this yet. There almost certainly was a blanket. Some of it's gone through the erosion because there's a stream that cuts down through the deposit, and some of it has gone because the small miners were able to mine that blanket during the gold rush. But look, we'll just let this thing run, just to give you some sort of idea. There are several zones within the Central deposit here. And so they're different colors. You can see the drill holes coming down through that. As I said, just like the MG deposit, this has a flat bottom. Why does it have a flat bottom? Because we have no drill holes underneath that. Both of these deposits are open at depth. That's Central, and we're hoping that MG's the new PDM area that I've been talking about is going to look the same as this. Anyway, I'll stop that now. I just want to show you. I've almost finished, and then Mikhail you guys can start firing questions at me. This thing I think is scheduled for an hour, but I can go for another half hour beyond that if we need to. Probably you're all falling asleep, but look, this is our camp. Well, these are some shots of our camp, the core storage facilities, some of the accommodation. We largely build in wood here because it's a cheap material, and so we have accommodation here for about 85 people. Photos of the drilling. These are the various drill rigs. We've got 3 of these diamond rigs in the top right. This is the big RC rig that we've got, huge big piece of equipment, and this is our little in-house RC rig. It's just some photos of logging and the sampling. We have quite an extensive logging and sampling facility. This is, there's a lot of effort goes into this, guys, and that's our little office with some of our geos and our technicians in there. Well, this is a video. The guys did. There's an irritating soundtrack to this, but this is. I think they're transporting some equipment here, and then it just takes you through some of the things that we do. We use these little quad bikes. This is the guys that are basically marking up some drill platforms at. I think this is Central, in preparation for the drilling at Central. We need a certain size of drill platform. Let's see if we can just move forward a little bit here. Obviously we do a lot of work on this core. This is expensive, so we take a lot of care with this. We log everything. We measure everything that we can with the core, and that core has to be split. So that core is basically run through a rotating diamond tip blade that cleaves the core in half, and half of that core we send to the lab, and half of it will stay in the box. Now, none of that core has been cut yet. I think we may have some. Here it is. This is one of the guys. This is not the most popular job on site. Is cutting through that core material. All of that core has to be cut like that, and as I said, half of that goes to the lab. What else have we got here? This is measuring some, in this case, this is what's called a magnetic susceptibility meter. So we're measuring the magnetic responses of the rocks here. Very important. Let's just pull it forward a little bit. What else have they got? And we photograph it all. So as I said, we take a lot of care of this. This is expensive. So they spray it so that we can actually see what's happening, and we take a photograph of every single box of core. There you go. I think I'll leave it at that, Mikkel, and I'll open up for questions. I've already probably taken far too much time.
Yes, thank you for that, Alan. Some really interesting stuff. You talked a lot about the oxide blankets, especially at MG, and that you're doing metallurgical work there, and you talked about permitting as well. What's the strategy for the blankets going forward? Are you seeing a path to production? I know you have a trial license, but that's very limited. So what's the strategy here?
Well, look, the identification of these blankets, guys, gives us a opportunity to get into smaller scale production much more quickly. Why? Because the capital cost to develop those blankets will literally be, it's not just the operating costs, the capital cost on a processing plant, on a mine, to start mining that material will be a fraction of what it would be on a much bigger operation. So the strategy here, Mikkel, is, and I have to be a little bit careful what I say, because we don't have any even a PEA on this yet. The strategy is to really look hard about demonstrating the viability of that mining and processing that oxide mineralization. Now, if we're able to do that, we think the margin on that will be significant. I'm not going to mention any numbers, but we think it'll be a significant margin. The cost of mining and processing that material is much less than mining and processing hard rock material, and that could give us cash flow very quickly. We've currently got 2 trial mining licenses. We expect to get granted several additional trial mining licenses. There's been a huge amount of environmental work we've done. We haven't put any news out on the permitting, but we're very advanced with the permitting, and I think we can expect to see some news on that in the near future. So it does open up that possibility of potentially making some money in the short to medium term here, and self-funding our whole exploration program.
Okay, that's very interesting. What would it take for you guys to start up production in terms of capital, and would you be processing the material on site?
I can't answer that. I'm just speculating. I mean, if you look at other similar operations, it could be anywhere from 5 to 10, $15 million to build a plant here. And what was the second part of your question? But I don't know. I'll qualify that with we haven't done the studies yet. We need to check. What was the second part of the question, Mikhail?
If you were going to be processing the material on site?
Yeah. Again, that's the metallurgical work. We need to determine what the processing route is. But whatever the processing route is, that material will be processed on site and we'll be flying out gold bars.
Okay, thanks. In the latest company presentation, you had a good slide showing the drilling timeline and potential catalyst for the next 8 months. Does that still align with the overall strategy? And can you elaborate a bit on this in terms of prioritizing resources between blankets, high-grade deposits, and all the 40-plus potential targets?
The timeline, I was looking at that today actually in the current, that we've updated the presentation, but I think I left the August, September, October on there, or September, October anyway, and so that we're tracking pretty close to that timeline. I mean, look, there's a lot going on. It's really difficult for you guys. It's almost impossible for you guys to keep track of all the things that we're doing. Look, in broad terms, the drill program between now and June, a large chunk of the diamond drilling, the amount of diamond drilling we're going, will be on MG and Central in order to determine how much high-grade material we've got. Now, don't forget, and the reason we're doing that, because back in 2018, when the resource estimate was done, there was a lot of high-grade material that did not make it into the resource estimate. Why? Because we didn't have separate what we call wireframe models, and that is shapes, for want of a better word. Let's call them shapes, defining the high-grade veins. So when the independent engineering firm looked at all our drill data, they said, well, yes, you have some high-grade mineralization here, but it's probably just you don't have a separate shape for the high-grade mineralization, so we're going to cut all those high-grade numbers way back. So if you look at the uncut resource from the latest 43101 back in 2018, the uncut resource that was suggested from the actual drill results is 1.5 million ounces. Back in 2018, we ended up with a 1 million ounce resource because all that high grade material did not make it, most of it did not make it into the resource estimate. And since then, we've drilled another 25,000 meters, and we're going to drill another 30,000 meters. So there's enormous upside on the resource here, guys. Sorry, what else did you ask me, Mikhail? Again, I've probably gone off on a tangent here. What was the rest of it?
Yeah, just if the targets and the strategy remains the same as was outlined in the timeline from the last.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, I'm not anticipating sort of changing that. Now, I think it probably will change. Drill programs always change. You come across, you have more positive results from one area versus another area. But right now, we're tracking pretty close to that timeline. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. There hasn't been, I guess, any news regarding the high-grade rock exploration part for months and the diamond drilling. Why is that? And related to that, Bo has a question regarding the results from Mia Boer.
Yeah. Look, we have had some delays with the drilling. Obviously, the diamond drilling goes a lot slower, right? Yes, we've got 3 diamond rigs going, but we've got 2 RC rigs going, and those RC rigs are much faster. They produce a lot more samples, a lot more quicker, drill a lot more holes. So it's a combination of the fact that the diamond drilling is, by its very nature, takes longer than the RC work, and also there was a downtime with the lab. And the third thing is, look, we're not putting results out on a 1 or 2 hole basis, right? We're not going to do that. I think you'll see diamond drill results from MG coming very, very quickly. And it has been a while since we've put out any results from the diamond drilling at MG. Miraboa is one of those regional targets, just so that it's not even marked on this map. So look, this isn't a very good slide to illustrate it, but Miraboa is this target up here in yellow. A lot of gold coming down this drainage. Now we have a soil anomaly in this area, guys, and so we've done some recce RC drilling on that. I think we've drilled about 20 holes or something like that. I'd need to check, but we're waiting on the results. It's a higher risk target, and we don't have all the results back yet. Timing on Miraboa. I know we've got some results. I don't know exactly. I'm guessing a couple of weeks to get the rest of the results back. So yeah, that's the answer to that.
Okay, thank you. Ole is asking, looking at the oxide blanket drilling results so far, to me, there seems to be a huge mismatch between the CBR market cap and the value of the oxide blanket deposit. Wouldn't you say, based on the oxide blanket size only, that the current market cap should be many times higher?
Yeah, I sure would. There is a massive mismatch, right? I don't think a lot of folks have realized what this is. I mean, I think a lot of people, as I said earlier, they assume that your meters at your whatever grade has the same implications regardless of the rock type or the material you're drilling. It does not. If it's at surface, it's a lot more valuable. So if you have 30 meters of a gram at surface, it's much more valuable than 30 meters at 1 gram at 200 meters depth. Much more valuable. And then the second component of that, as I said, is if you have 30 meters at 1 gram at surface in sand, mud and soil that you can just scoop up with a front end loader, and you don't have to drill and blast this stuff, that's hugely more valuable. Right? So yes, I do think there's a mismatch, but that's the opportunity. Like, as I said at the outset here, I realize some of you are very frustrated, and some of you are in this stock at higher levels. I've put a lot of my own net worth into this, so I'm the biggest shareholder, and so I am going to make this a success. We had a great year last year. It's backed off a little bit, and so there is in the opportunity. The stock is cheap right now, guys. This is a good time to grab it. So look, all I can say is I'm dedicated to turning the ship around, and I think the drill results are starting to speak for themselves.
Okay, and another question from Bo. Why don't you drill the Machichi target aggressively when it's very possible it's a new high-grade deposit?
Yeah, good question. Because we can't do everything, right? And so, the danger of having a district scale play like this, which clearly contains multiple gold deposits, is where do you focus? Where do you put your resources? You can't do everything at the same time. Agreed, Mashishi is a cracking deposit, but we have a whole bunch of targets, admittedly not with quite so many veins, but we have some excellent targets here, guys. It's basically because we can't do everything at the same time. And when you're drilling these veins, you need time to get the results back. You don't want to go put in 10 holes or 8 holes and really not have any results. So is there more drilling planned at Mashishi and that Mashishi Southwest area I showed you with the new veins? Yes, there is, but we won't get back to it until early in the new year.
Okay, and a question from Kim. Do you think G Mining would potentially acquire Cabral in the future?
Potentially. I can't speak for them, but look, I worked for major companies for a big chunk of my career. So I worked for Rio Tinto for about 7 or 8 years, and then I was with BHP Billiton, now BHP, for about 6 or 7 years. And when I was at BHP, I was doing business development. So I was looking at all these junior companies, right? And we were taking placements in these companies, and the portfolio that we got, because we took share positions in all these junior companies, not all of them, but we had a big portfolio, was hugely valuable, and it made a lot of money for the company. But, so look, I mention that because I've got the other perspective. I can see it from their point of view. I know that when we have we've met them virtually, Very impressive bunch of guys, but I think there is a possibility that there could be some consolidation. But they're going to continue focusing. But they've just bought this thing. The deal closed yesterday. They've got to get a grip on demonstrating to the market that their thing is economically viable, and that they can actually build it, hopefully cheaper than Eldorado thought they could build it. So they've got their hands full. But I mean, clearly having a new neighbor with an exciting project next door does open up potential opportunities. But look, I don't think they're going to step up tomorrow and make a bid for us. But if we can't keep growing this thing, I think we're going to get more and more difficult to ignore. So we'll see. We're just going to keep focused on our thing. They're going to be doing their stuff, and it's great to have new neighbors. These guys, by the way, I heard on the grapevine, looked at lots of different gold projects. And there were a lot of big companies that had assets on the back burner, and they wanted these guys to come in and take their asset on. That's how good these guys are. There are a lot of different groups courting them to develop their project, and these guys chose this asset, which is fantastic. But as I said, there's no escaping the fact that look at this. This is key. I'll find it in a minute. Look at the footprint. Look at the size of those yellow spidery lines. All those yellow spidery lines are where the placer gold was extracted in the 1980s. Look at how much there's almost. We've got 17.9 square kilometers of placer material here. It's all been sluiced through boxes, wooden sluice boxes, during the gold rush in the 1980s. There was no sort of mechanized work done here. But look at the footprint of the area versus the footprint of G Mining's area, TZ. The footprint of Cuyo Cuyo is 10 times bigger, guys. There has to be a lot more primary gold here, generating that amount, that size of the alluvial gold field. By the way, the tailings material at TZ in these tiny little yellow areas here is averaging a gram of gold. So it's probably a lot richer than that before the small miners arrived in the 1980s. What do you think our tailings are going to average? Could our tailings average 1 gram a ton gold? And if they do, how much gold could still be in these yellow tailings? We've not done any work on that yet. But 17.9 square kilometers is an awful lot of historic tailings, which is all sand and gravel. Anyway, again, I'm sure I've gone off topic. Keep them coming, Mikhail. Okay. What else?
Yes, a question from Johan. When will we have results giving more answers regarding a possible deposit under the PDM blanket?
Yeah, good question. I think we're on hole 6 for the diamond drilling, so I would guess in the next few weeks.
Okay.
What does that mean? Does that mean 10 weeks? No, that doesn't mean 10 weeks. Does that mean 2 weeks? No, it doesn't. Probably 4 to 6 weeks. Look, don't beat me up if not. We are I can't guarantee these things. We send all our samples, and we are sending a lot of samples to the lab. There's a big lab down in Belo Horizonte, but so does everybody else, right? And so we're not their only client. They have lots of other clients. So.
Okay, thanks. And a question from Karen. Would you say that 0.5 grams per ton in the oxide blanket is equivalent to like 10 grams per ton underground?
Well, obviously it depends how deep you are underground, but yeah, quite potentially, yeah. And that sounds crazy. Many of you must think, what the heck is he going on about? How can half a gram be better than 10 grams? Well, like I said, half a gram material in unconsolidated material at surface that you just scoop up. You don't need to drill it and blast it. But a 10 gram material, that's very high grade. But if you've got to get down 200 meters to get to it, and you've got to put a very expensive shaft, you've got to put a big grinding circuit, you've got to have an underground mine, I would, but it would depend on the depth of the material and what the metallurgy is, and there are other things. But I think there's a good chance that it could be. But don't forget, guys, when you're looking at grade, and I've made this point numerous times already, Brazil's, it does depend on the material you're doing, you're processing. But Brazil's biggest gold mine is averaging about 0.35, and it's run by Kinross. It's called Paracatu. It's not in the Tapajós region, it's in southern Brazil. It's an enormous gold mine. They produced over 500,000 ounces last year. But the average grade is 0.35, something like that. Have a look at the Kinross website. And it makes an enormous amount of money for Kinross every year. And that's not oxide material. It's hard rock, it's softer. It's not hard, like really hard quartz rock, most of it. It's a softer rock, but it's not mud, sand and soil like we've got in these blankets.
Okay, thanks. And a question from Lasse. How much cash do you have and what is the monthly burn rate?
We've got about $8 million lasting right now, and the monthly burn rate is about 900,000 a month. So, something like that, in broad terms anyway. There is a little bit of fluctuation, but yeah, that's broadly. So that gives you some idea about what I would call runway, or when we will need to raise more money.
Okay, thanks. And somewhat on that trail, actually, Michael has a great question here. I'm concerned that with the low stock appreciation, my investment will get diluted. I think getting into production of the oxide blanket ASAP will protect us from that and also bring stability to the stock price. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree, Michael. Look, as I said, I'm the biggest shareholder in the company, so I'm aligned with all you guys that have bought stock. So I share that concern. You're right to be concerned about dilution. What we don't want to do, we have a district scale opportunity, which is fantastic here. There's clearly a lot more gold within this project area, within this district, than the current resource base reflects. But what we need to guard against is we don't blow up the capital structure of the company in exploring. So as I said, that the identification of these oxides does give us a route to near-term production. It's not going to take us 2, 3 years to build a mine here if we decide to produce from those blankets. So we are going to pursue that, and I think you guys will see more and more news about that in the new year and within the next few weeks, actually.
Okay, that's really interesting. A question from Magnus. When the results of the 6 diamond drill holes at PDM is returned, are you then done drilling the PDM and the blanket? According to the plan, coming November, you should be done drilling PDM. One would be inclined to think there are still more to be drilled at the moment.
Yeah, good point. Yes, as I said, that plan with the drill results, which is in this presentation, but it's in the presentation on the website, that will change. And look, we do have some historic holes into the underlying granite material of PDM. So we know that there's gold in that underlying granite. Question is how much, and does it hang together, and does it represent a new deposit? But yeah, there'll be more than 6 holes drilled, likely, particularly if we start getting good results. Now, if all the results come back negative, then we'll have some head scratching to do. But I'd be very surprised if they do. Particularly, as I said, we've got some historic holes, so we know there's gold mineralization down there underneath that blanket.
Okay. And a question from Torben. Do you know or have an estimate on the break-even cost on processing oxide versus hard rock?
No, guys. My apologies. I can't answer that. If I do have a try and have a stab at that, then I could get in hot water with the regulatory authorities in Canada, notably the Securities Commission, by leading you on without having leading you on is not the right word, but saying something without having a sort of a scoping study in place, a 43 scope 101 scoping study in place. What I do plan on doing, and I had this chat with Mikhail recently, is what I do want to do when I've got some time is actually draw some analogs for you guys. So I can point you in the direction of company A that's got a similar sort of, operation mining this oxide material. They're not very common, but I do want to give you some analogs. But my apologies, I can't give you specific numbers right now.
Okay, that sounds fair. Alan, I just need to know, can we go like 5 minutes past?
You can go 30 minutes past the time here. We're 5 minutes to go, but you can go 30 minutes past, and then unfortunately I've got another call with one of our big shareholders. So, but no, keep going, Mikael.
Okay,
I'm good.
Great. Another question from Nikolai. Why haven't there been any insider acquisition in the public market if the stock is cheap at the moment, as you stated earlier?
Yeah, that is a good question. I've spent a lot of money on this, but I don't have a huge amount of money left to buy in the public market. So that's essentially the reason. Some of our directors aren't particularly wealthy. They're good guys. They hold stock. Our CFO is a significant shareholder. Our chairman's a significant shareholder. One of the ex-directors is one of the largest shareholders. So it's basically, I don't have massive amounts of money lying about that I can keep buying the stock. Now I realise it's a huge, obviously positive, but 1.7 million is into this already, and I have participated in virtually, I think, all the financings, apart from the last one, which is a bought deal, where I had my name down, but everybody else I had to make some room for some other people. And the bulk of the financing was actually allocated by the broker. That's what a bought deal is, as most of you know. They actually get to decide where the bulk of the offering is going. So I'm a little bit limited right now in terms of what I can do, but hopefully that'll change in the near future.
Okay. Thanks. And a question from Karen. Are any analysts putting out positive notes? And actually also I forgot to ask you about broker coverage. What's the status on that as well? Several analysts from Canadian brokerage firms are putting out notes. We've seen several today, notably Cormark, Paradigm and Mackie. Which were 3 of the 4 brokers in the bought deal syndicate in July. Paradigm and Mackie have been long-term supporters of us, so they've all put out notes. Or at least 2 of them, those have today. We are working quite hard on getting full coverage here. We don't currently have any full analyst coverage, with a 15-page kind of report and targets and all the rest of it, but we are working hard on it. So watch this space, guys. It is one of the key things that we are trying to address, and I'm optimistic that within the next few weeks we'll be able to announce that we've got at least one analyst covering the stock. Okay, sounds good. And a question from Magnus. How did the conferences go? In your view, how is the interest in Cabral from the bigger players and investors?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, we did the Beaver Creek conference in September. Many of you will be aware of that. It's invitation only. They're pretty selective about who they invite, both on the investor side and on the corporate side. We were invited last year. We had a great conference last year. This year, we had a full schedule. So I think I had 60 meetings. There were 1 or 2 no-shows, but I had a full schedule booked 3 weeks ahead of the event. I think the organisers were surprised. I mean, I was kind of stunned. I mean, fortunately for me, there was 5 minutes between every meeting because, I had like 10-hour sessions, right? But it was very well received. And obviously with the G mining deal on TZ next door, it's we've noticed that there's the interest from corporates in meeting us. Bigger companies, there's definitely a lot more bigger companies wanting to meet with us. And also a lot of institutional investors, even sort of like a wealthy private folks who never had any interest previously. Since the G mining deal was announced on TZ, there's definitely a lot more interest. As you guys know, because you saw it in the press release recently, I think last week, we've announced I'm going to London in mid-November for the one-to-one. Very, very well organized conference. We've done them in the past. We are going to, I've got the Swiss Mining Institute conference next week. That's virtual. That's very, very well organized. They've run 2 conferences a year, usually in Zurich and Geneva, but they've obviously been virtual. And so I'm doing that next week. And I've got, 45 meetings over 3 days. That's going to be very busy. Is it fully booked? No, thank goodness. So I do have time to eat. But there are still 1 or 2 open slots. So if any of you guys are registered for the Swiss Mining Institute next week then and want a meeting, please fire a meeting request at us. So I'm doing that next week. Then I'm doing the one-to-one mid-November, and then we're going to Mines and Money, which is back in London first week of December. So there's quite a bit of running around. There will be a lot of marketing. We're doing stuff with Crux. Some of you will have watched Matt Gordon's interviews. I like Matt. He's a straight shooter, and I like his questions. We're doing Crux. We're doing a number of other things as well. So, the news flow here is picking up, and we want to make sure that we can, transmit our message as widely as possible.
Okay, and actually related to that topic, another question from Magnus. There has been a lot of frustration lately regarding investors not thinking the words getting out enough about Cabral. What are the plans for marketing and creating awareness about Cabral?
Well, obviously these conferences, that's a big part of it. We are getting more and more active on the social media side too. Crux is a component of that. We do a little bit of advertising through 321 Gold, Bob Moriarty, but his website doesn't look too great, but he has enormous reach, an enormous number of people that read his stuff. There are a number of other independent newsletter writers that we work with. So look, we're just going to do as much as we can. Are we though going to spend your money on multi-million-dollar IR programs? No, we're not. Right? We're not. This isn't a pump job, guys. The stock price has backed off. I know you're frustrated, but there's 2 ways of looking at it. You can either sort of say, oh my God, this is a disaster, but nothing fundamentally changed with this company. The market has backed off for exploration companies, or you can look at it as a fantastic opportunity to get the stock cheap, which I think it is. So look, I think I've answered that best I can.
Yes.
We are working with a number of different groups.
Okay, sounds good. And a question from Henrik: what is required before you are expecting to do an updated resource estimate?
Drilling, and we take all that drill data, and then we create shapes, or what's called wireframe models in the industry, and those are shapes of your mineralized zones. And then we send all the drill data with those shapes to an independent engineering firm who do a report on it. So that's basically the way it works. We don't do the resource estimate. We give them the drill data, we give them the shapes of the zones, and then they decide. The frustrating thing with the last resource estimate, as many of you know, was that back to this issue about the cutoff grade and the fact that a lot of high-grade mineralization was not included in our resource estimate that we drilled. The TZ project has a top cut of 25 grams a ton. So what that means is drill intercepts above 25 grams a ton become 25 grams a ton. So if you've got a drill intercept of 2 meters at 50 grams, the purpose of the resource estimates is assumed to be 2 meters at 25 grams a ton. Because we're right next door, mineralization formed within the same regional structure, same sort of host rocks, we assumed that our top cut would be the same, about 25 grams a ton. Our top cuts were much, much lower. So the independent engineering firm put in top cuts which range from 2 grams to 20 grams. Most of our resources have been cut to a maximum of 5 or 10 grams a ton. And as a result, there's 500,000 ounces that with the uncut resource, there's 500,000 ounces that was not included. We thought those top cuts were quite conservative, but to be fair to Micon that did the resource estimate, we didn't give them the shapes of the high grade high-grade zones. Why? Because we didn't have enough drilling done within the high-grade zones. So that's what we're aiming to rectify.
Okay, thanks. And a question from Johan. Are there any plans to expand the drilling even further, or does the resource limit us to 5 rigs?
Yeah, there are some logistical considerations. Not right now, although, if PDM turns out to be another sort of 500,000 or 1 million ounces, or Mashishi or one of these other targets here, yeah, I mean, we could potentially do it. It does mean that, that has knock-on effects with sort of vehicles and geologists and, accommodation, and all the rest of it has to be upsized. So not in the short term, but, if we make more discoveries, I wouldn't rule it out.
Okay. And a question from Torben. Big players tend to have more than one eye on the risk compared to the reward. Would you gain more on explaining the risk is very small, hence they don't seem to understand the value of the drill results?
I think, can you just repeat that, Mikkel? I just need to process that again.
Yeah.
Are we talking about big companies?
I think so, yes.
Look. I think most big companies understand what we're doing here, and that's why there's been so much corporate interest in the company. Yeah, I mean, look, it's difficult for some of you guys, most of you folks, I suspect, who are sitting at home thinking, geez, this is really difficult to get my head around. There's all these different targets, and it's really, really difficult to keep track of where they're drilling and all these things. Obviously, some of these major companies have quite a lot of people they can deploy on analysing everything that we do and we've done and everything that's in the public domain. We do talk to lots of different companies. I was in just before the pandemic, so this would have been February time last year. I was in the head office of a big gold company, a gold producer, and I was in with a business development guy, and we ran through the presentation. This was before all this latest drilling and the blankets and everything else. We ran through the presentation, and I come to the end of it after about 45 minutes, and he asked some good questions, and I said, well, what do you think? And he said, it's very, very interesting. And I said, tell me, you have gold projects all over the world, you have a big exploration program, you're spending huge amount of money on exploration annually. If you had this project in your exploration portfolio, would it get funded? Would it compete with all your exploration projects around the world? He said, not only would it compete, it'd be one of our top 3. Right? Now, you're gonna have to take my word for that, but that's what he said. So anyway, look, I don't think I've answered the question. I'm not completely au fait, but please send us an email, and I'll endeavour to give a much more thorough response on that.
Okay, thanks. And I have a question as well. I'm not sure you will be able to answer it, but do you see it as an actual possibility that Cabral will have something close to full-scale production of the blanket at MG within the next 12 to 18 months?
That's quite an aggressive time frame. I think it's possible, Mikkel, but I think we may need 18 months probably would be the soonest, I think, because we're going to need some time to get the network done, and we've got a little bit of work on the permitting. Of course, you can't just sort of charge in and start building something. You've got one of the things you need is obviously construction financing, which will take time to organise, even for a relatively modest amount. So, I don't think it's realistic for us to be in production within 12 months. Is it possible? Sure, but I think pretty highly unlikely. 18 months, more reasonable, potentially, yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. And if you're going to pursue this production path, would you be able to run the same drilling program concurrently in terms of resources and capital and etc.?
Yeah, we're not going to take our foot off the accelerator on the exploration side, right? the challenge is what we don't want to do is have our people and 1 second worrying about having core boxes or where the samples are from are going and all, whether they've gone to the lab and all the rest of it, and 5 minutes later worrying about building. There needs to be a separate team. So how we would do it would be we have a completely separate, dedicated team that would be focused on building a plant and a mine on these blank to tackle this oxide material. It would have to be completely separate. They would both teams would report through to me ultimately, but that we couldn't have our existing team in Brazil trying to sort of divide their time between both objectives. That wouldn't work. It'd be a disaster.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering that. And a question from Thor. Hi, Alan, and thank you for your presentation. Taking into consideration that most people don't understand how valuable the blankets are, wouldn't it be wise to present some calculations for the investors?
Yeah, it would. Look, I think you guys. I can't give you a. I have to be a little bit careful here. I'm not trying to be evasive. I just don't want to get into have any issues about. I have to be slightly careful. I think. Look, you guys can draw your own inferences about the potential size of these blankets. You guys all know what the surface footprints are on these blankets, right? You've seen some of the drill holes. You know that there are some high-grade zones, but a lot of it's lower-grade mineralization. So pick an average grade, and you've got the thicknesses there. Obviously, these blankets taper towards the margins, and they're thicker in the middle. As you get further away from the underlying hard rock deposit, which is being eroded, these blankets taper down. So I think you could probably get some idea of the amount of contained gold in these various in the 2 known blankets that we've got. But in terms of sort of the economic viability, again, it comes back. It's similar to the previous question. I think I'm going to have to push you guys in the direction of some analogues here. That's kind of clear, because I can't go sort of waving my arms and saying we're going to do this and this and this without having an economic study done to back it up that's in the public domain. So again, some of these questions I can't fully answer, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I'm doing my best, but I can't fully answer some of this stuff.
It makes sense. One last question here. When will you be back in Brazil to oversee things? If
November, December time, before the end of the year, I will be in Brazil. I will say that we've got an excellent team down there, and I'm on virtual calls with them, sometimes several times a day. We've got a fantastic team, guys. I'm very proud of the work that they're doing down there. Rory McKnight is an Australian guy who's he's been a friend of mine for a long time, but he's very, very good at managing the logistical aspects of what we do, not just the logistics, but the tenure aspects and the human resource aspects, and he runs a pretty big team. Guillermo Hughes, who's trapped in Argentina right now, is a geologist I've known a long time. He's spent an awful lot of time on this project. He runs our all the geologists report through to Guillermo at the end of the day. Mark Smith, who's our executive chairman, he's also trapped in his basement in Toronto. So spare a thought for him. But Mark is an accomplished geologist in his own right. He worked for the Ontario Geological Survey. He's been all over the world. He worked as an analyst. And Mark's probably biggest claim to fame is he was one of the first analysts to recognize the Fruta del Norte discovery, which ended up being a massive gold discovery, which is now a big mine in Ecuador. And Mark was one of the first people to call that. And so he's very highly regarded, and he spends 80% of his time, or virtually all of his time, working on Cabral stuff. So, if any of you are interested in connecting with any of those guys and having a broader discussion, maybe for the next Q&A will involve, that's not a bad idea, Mikkel, maybe the next one will involve the other key members of the management team. I think it'd be very interesting for you guys to get to know them.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. I don't really see any more questions, so I think that wraps it up. Thank you so much, Alan, for taking your time to do this Q&A, and hopefully we'll be able to do another one just before Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you, Mikkel, for organising it. I mean, as you guys will all realise, this takes quite a lot of Mikkel's time, and thank you so much. And look, if any of you guys have any follow-up questions, just email me. You don't have to wait 2 or 3 months for the next Q&A. Just the best way of getting hold of me is to email me, and if you really want to have a conversation, we can get on WhatsApp or whatever. But my email is alan@cabralgold.com. Mikkel's got it. A number of you have it. Some of you email me on a regular basis. Please don't drive me nuts. But if you've got a question, send it through. But don't send me five emails a day, please. But please, if you've got anything that's bothering you, or I'm here. And again, I'm aligned with you guys, right? I'm a big shareholder in this company. I put a lot of my own money into this, and so I'm aligned with all of you. So thanks for your interest. I'm sorry it's been so long-winded. There are obviously a lot of questions, but yeah, please feel free to come back to me with any follow-up.
That sounds good, Alan. Actually, there's one last question. Can we take that before you leave us?
Yeah, we can.
It's from John. What do you think it will take for the share price to catch up with the potential or value of the company? What will drive and trigger this? Do you anticipate?
Well, I think the drill results will trigger it, and I think obviously all the aggressive marketing that we're going to be doing over the next few months, all these various conferences and initiatives that we've got going, I think will help convince people in spreading our message, and just convincing people just how good this thing is. I think also, as an CEO of an exploration company in the resource sector, the overall broader market and appetite for exploration has to improve. It's obviously taken a bit of a downward dip in the last couple of months, but like I said, and I think that general market has to improve, and there are signs that it is improving. But I do think there's an incredible opportunity right now with the current share price. So hopefully some of you guys do too.
We do. So thank you, Alan, and that's the last words for tonight. Have a great evening, guys. And bye.
Thanks very much, everybody. All the best. Bye-bye.